do it stealthily because you can see my Adam's apple moving the whole time. Like we're warming up.
Oof, what a day. What a day. Oh, you have no eyes in the thumbnail.
And I have really, really terrible hair.
It's not really, really terrible. It's just not great.
I'm definitely in need of a trim.
Well, I'm your barber. I'll get around to it, sir.
Hey, Pico. Wow, Pico is back.
Shady response.
Well, it has been a while since we've seen Pico.
It has been a while. And then your requested topics, you're not here.
Oh, and wasn't he the one who wanted to buy Nyctophobia?
I don't remember. We've made Pico want to buy many games. Cherry.
My nose is all sniffly again.
Well, we just had the masks on for an extended period of time, so that's understandable. So yeah, we're a little late because we had to do grocery. And then the last time we did this, we were super like rushing to get in front of the camera by 9. So this one's like, I give up. I'm buying us buffer time. It's been a long day.
Hey, Ed. It's been a while. Oh my god, there's a bug on my monitor. That my monitor will glitch if I hit it.
It's just a small bug.
It's a flyer, so I have to. Damn it.
No, you're gonna bork your computer.
And I'm working the camera.
Oh. Yes, you have borked the camera. Hey, Ed.
Sorry about that. Let me fix that.
See, this is like evidence number 257 of why Toby is a dog. As long as he sees something moving in the house, he will bolt after it.
No.
I was on a work call, and he had to dart past me. There was a bug out the window.
It was a hornet. No, a wasp. It was a wasp and it was about to fly in. Would you want to have a wasp in your house? Do you want me to run after the wasp in the house with insecticide?
It wasn't so bad during my training workshop because at least I had the background blur on. In my Zoom call, I didn't turn on blur or background, so then I had you going around. So, man,
and it's gotten pretty warm.
Oh yes, the humidity is like at an all-time high.
Earlier this week it was cold enough, but now it's super warm.
Yeah, and you know if Toby says it's warm, it must be really warm because Toby.
Hey, Andre.
Suffer for resignation. Well, it is January, which is a very popular time for people.
That's true.
To quit.
It is the most economical time.
No, the most economical time was to resign effective end of year. Then by now you should already, like, you're done. You're already a free agent.
But that's always tricky because some companies...
Nope, you have to release 13th month pay before the 24th. There's the weird wording of the law that you 13th month pay has to be up before Christmas. So that's why it creates spikes in attrition. Same thing for mid-year bonuses. Then you see a bunch of people leave after June. Incentive structures sometimes promote tenure, but often promote attrition.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm super in work mode today. I'm all ready for this topic.
Well, I guess we might as well start.
Yes, sure.
Hey, Amos. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. We are talking about applying for a job. which in some ways is not a wholly new topic since we sort of touched on this.
Yeah, we just can't remember where we talked about it.
Probably
we know we
adulting.
did. I guess an adulting topic or something, but now we're just doing a full dedicated work thing. And then in case you're wondering, these shirts are matching because they're both mine. And I have purchased almost every variant of this Old Navy shirt style. So yeah, that was the big plan for tonight's outfit.
Yeah, we also hope that the microphone is not picking up the fan because we're keeping it on because it's super warm.
But we haven't been using the air conditioning. We haven't crossed that threshold. I'm getting close though for like my comfort.
I'm just not sure if for the viewers there's
the last time we did it, it's been okay because I know it points here, but the mic is there, so it doesn't pick up so much ambient.
So applying for a job. Let's start with why does it tend to happen around this time of the year? And you were already started talking about that.
Well, we don't want to like officially acknowledge it, but in truth, HR practitioners across the country know that because of the release of 13th month at end of year, people tend to feel more free to change jobs at the start of the year. And, you know, it's just a thing. It's just a thing. It's a combination of the fact that you already got your 13th month pay and it's a new year. New year, new you, big changes. Amos loves the shirt on Toby.
So this is Rocky's shirt.
So you don't love the shirt on me.
Oh. Dun, dun, dun.
I don't get any love. It's okay. All right. So,
well, maybe because they would love to have the shirt off of you.
Oh, wow. That's not that kind of an episode. Not that kind of a job. Okay. So. Okay. I'm in a mood, guys. I'm in a mood. It's been a long day. I've been training for 2 days. And not in training. I've been training. And oh my God. So online training is not fun.
So let's talk about applying for a job. Hey, Carla has joined us. And to start with that, let's start with...
Oh, wow. And Pico says no issues on taxes. Yes, because there's no need to request for a BIR 2316 from your previous employer in the same calendar year. I'm getting way ahead of myself. All right. So I guess we start with what? Your resume? Job portals? Where do you want to start?
Well, I think you first have to decide what sort of job you're looking for. And that includes preparing your resume, preparing your spiel, knowing what to wear. But before you even do all that, you have to at least decide what you're looking for. Because some people, they just look for whatever's available. But then they don't last long because they realize they don't really like the job.
Okay, so I mean, like, yeah, definitely look for work that fits a combination of your interests and your skill set, right? It's cute in the beginning, especially when you're a fresh grad. Then you think like, I should find a course that aligns with, if I should find a job that aligns with my course. That's really cute. It's probably not going to happen. But at least look for something that works with your skill set. And then you can go from there.
Usually that alignment only happens for your internship. Because admittedly, many schools require internships and many companies are happy to have interns. To digress real quick, how do you feel about internships where the intern doesn't really know what to do?
Oh, wow. Wait, sorry. We also have Marky who's also for job. We got a lot of job seekers. Hi, guys. All right.
Marky.
So, sorry?
Because like there are interns who apply for an internship, but they don't really know what to do, which is different from not having experience. Because sometimes you'll, let's say, have a graphic artist as an intern, and they really do graphic art. They're just not experienced.
Okay.
But then you have people who, you know, apply as a graphic artist for an internship, but then can't really do art either.
That's sad.
So how do you feel then about job seeking in those type of cases? Is it really a be more aware of your skill set, or as some people do say, in many jobs you do fake it until you make it?
I think, I mean, if you're really going to get a leg up on what you're hoping to do, you're going to need some way to demonstrate skills related to it. And that's why, from a fresh grad perspective,
we've hit 10!
Hey! Yay! You haven't had this in a while. Thanks, guys.
And you know why we finally hit 10 again?
Why?
Because Pico showed up.
Because Pico showed up. So when Pico's not here, we're not going to hit 10. Yun pala yun. Okay. So, realistically, from a fresh grad perspective, obviously you don't have work experience.
Yes.
So you need another way to illustrate what skills you have.
Mhm.
And this is where things like any short courses you take, any seminars you take during school, any organizations that you are in,
or
that's the
extra
main
activities.
yeah, that's the main purpose of putting orgs on your resume.
Mhm.
When the orgs, or better yet, if you were an officer in the org, then you can show that you did certain things, and it gives the recruiter something to talk about. When you haven't, when you're not a fresh grad anymore, and you had some employment, then naturally you should highlight not just the job positions you fulfilled, but have a short description of what you actually did,
Mhm.
so that they can get a better idea of the skills that you learned or had to demonstrate.
In many cases, when schools require their students to have internships, and interns do apply in companies. Carlo was asking, shouldn't the company filter those? In practice, companies do still sort of filter because they do still interview the person.
Yeah.
They do still. So in practice, yes.
But hey, free labor. No.
But at the same time, it's not to be mistaken as actual filtering in the sense of application.
Interns are not subjected to the
job
same
applications, yes.
hiring standards depending on the company. Some are a lot nicer, especially if you have their relationship with schools and direct tie-ups. Then they're a bit more lenient in the sense of allowing people in.
Mhm. And admittedly, in my case, in the internship interviews I've had, I look less in terms of skill level and more in terms of, do I feel this person will be able to grow and train and do more things? Because sometimes you have people who, let's say they'll apply, but then deep down you realize, oh, this person just wants to paint. And,
on MS Paint,
they will hate being in this job. And they will hate delivering something because they would just want to paint what they feel. And that's when I have to be more honest. That I don't.
Are we back to graphic artists versus graphic designers?
Okay, my nose is like super reacting. I guess it's because the fans ain't us.
Same thing that Mitch says. For interns, we tend to look at the attitude of the person.
Yes.
I totally agree.
That's huge.
That internships, getting into an internship is rarely because of skill set, because we assume you don't have the skills, but it's really about your personality and your fit and the stuff.
Now, something that you have to bear in mind though, and this is already jumping a little bit ahead, that when you prepare for an interview, some of the common things are, have certain lines prepared. Think of how you'll talk about your talents, even if you don't sound like you're doing that and all that. We know.
Talk about your flaws in a positive way.
We know when that's happening.
Okay, but we can
read that.
We're getting way ahead of ourselves. All right, so
it's not a secret anymore.
All right,
go on.
So I mean, you're trying to figure out where to apply, and once you know where you're applying, regardless of your experience level, please take the time to tailor your resume for the job. You might be able to tailor your resume for a whole segment of jobs or category of jobs, but please, make sure that it is aligned to what you are applying for.
And on a related note, do your research on the company you're applying.
Oh, yes.
Because, oh my gosh, I can say I have horror stories of people who I have in an interview. And then when I ask, so what do you know about the company? And they're like, ewan ko po, I just saw it in JobStreet.
Yeah, I'm more direct. I'm literally like, so what made you apply for our company? Or did you apply for every copywriter position on JobStreet?
So that is Rocky.
No. Cover letters. Cover letters, I've always had mixed feelings. I always feel they're a little archaic, but then they still seem to be popular in local companies. If they ask for a cover letter, yes. Please customize the cover letter.
Me, I like that cover letters and resumes give me a peek on how well the person expresses themselves on their written
That's
form.
true. Communication's important.
And when you're talking about the resume level, you're talking about short phrases as to what they did in school or what they're proud of. And if they can't describe that in a clear way, then you know it's going to be an uphill battle to work with this person, even if it's just for training.
When it comes to the resume and sort of things like the cover letter, my number one pet peeve is the job objective or the objective. I don't know why we have
To
this
grow
thing
in
on
this
resume.
industry and blah blah.
To
blah,
apply my skills, to learn more things, to be in a company, blah blah blah. It's a lot of very flowery, generic language
I shall blow my
that
nose.
ends up really just saying, "I would like a job." It's like, I would like a job where I can learn things. I would like a job where you will make me do things. It sounds very simplistic, but please, that's really what you're saying with to seek employment in a company that provides opportunities that align with my skills and allow me to grow. We didn't rehearse that. We didn't rehearse that. Right? So, I mean, like, if you have a cover letter, you probably don't need an objective. If you're not going to do a cover letter, please tailor the objective.
Andre mentions, I need a job to make money, please.
Actually, yes, that is the most true objective.
And I've had a few, no, not actually a few. I had two interviewees who did state that directly when I asked, so why are you applying? And they were like, because I need the money. And I respected that because the person was one, willing to speak their mind. Two, willing to be more direct. But at the same time, I knew that this person would be someone I didn't have to bullshit.
Okay. All right. Then, depending on the type of job you're applying for, most office type corporate jobs, please provide a resume, which is different from a curriculum vitae.
I don't know the difference.
Let's get into this because I love it. Okay. A resume is a succinct summary of your work experience, typically 1 to 2 pages. If you are already getting into 3 pages, I assume you are a manager or executive with extensive experience. All right. And then a curriculum vitae is an extensive breakdown of your full educational background, including seminars taken and the like. Resumes are typically done in reverse order, where your current job or your most recent job is on top, and then you move down. A curriculum vitae starts from school and works your way forward. The curriculum vitae applies more, I feel, in academic industries or place where your educational credentials are very important, that I need to know that you have a master's degree in this and a PhD in that. But from a corporate perspective, at least as a layman hiring person, I just need a resume that cuts through the bullshit. And yes, things like Job Street and the like sort of make the process easier for you and see what they summarize.
Hey, Noel.
But, oh my God, still, please make a resume.
Okay. Kenny has a statement about, there are also creative resumes. I actually prefer those.
Oh, and that's specific to creative fields like artists and designers.
Yes.
And I get that. You're taught in school that there's a creative resume and like the serious resume. And definitely from an artist perspective, I would love to see the creative resume. But your creative resume has to make sense. I will get into this more. All right. So
same.
So again, resume for me, keep it short. 1 to 2 pages is enough. If you're at 3 pages, I'm sorry. Are you a manager? Because that's how I feel like the extent of the experience you're doing. And then because you're Noel's like, have a good photo on your resume. This is not required, but it can help. In some cases, it doesn't help. Okay, so
in cases you don't remember the names, photos help.
Okay, but yeah, and then in terms of your work experience, again, on a resume format, please make sure that you highlight in reverse order, so the most current job to the earliest, and then at the very least, provide a short description of the jobs that are relevant to the position you are applying for. So talk about what you're doing and the like. You don't, and I know you can't provide a description of every job you had, because then you would get a 3-4 page resume sometimes. So be smart, make it aligned to the role you're applying for.
And be aware that those blank spots will be part of the interview, because people handling the interview will notice, so there's a 1.5 years of a gap between these 2 jobs. What happened?
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. It's really just a matter of, it's not here, so just let me know. Because that also tells us how you manage your time, what type of focus you might have had during the time, what you were handling. And I guess, again, interviewers can tell if you're just throwing bullshit. Interviewers can tell if you're throwing quotes.
Pico says, do not enumerate all past employers in a resume. You don't necessarily have to, but make sure it makes sense what you're highlighting. So
Yes.
the ones that you put there are the ones that are relevant for the job you're applying for. I personally would hope you still list other roles or stuff you've held somewhere at the end, because I am the interviewer who always asks about the gaps.
Yes.
When you show me that you work from here to here in this year, and then suddenly there's a 2-year gap between, I will ask you what went on there. So if it's just you're trying to hide jobs you had, then it's weird. Then it's gonna come up and all that. Okay, so question. Carlos, like, should you smile on your resume photo? It's not bad to smile, but I think the photo should be professional. Please make it not a social media style selfie from a higher angle.
I was infamous when I applied to my first official job in ABS-CBN because my photo had me all open mouth, kita yung ngala-ngala sort of photo.
But I think it's also a creative feel.
That's what helped me, because then after I got the job, all the other managers were like, siya yung may ngala-ngala picture. And it helped me fit in real fast.
Okay. RJ's like, I always wonder if employers actually contact the character references. Always assume they will. And my number one pet peeve, I was gonna say it also. I know he's gonna say it also because we're totally in sync today. No. Number one is make sure your reference know that they are references.
Yes.
Okay? And you can't just put character references. Because when I assume character, these are your friends. And if you're going to actually give me actual work references, I need former bosses or people that you work closely with. So yes, assume they will get called.
And just co-workers are less valuable than people who are above you or manage you. Because co-workers, come on, everyone of course will say, yeah, he's awesome to work with. Lagi ko siya kasama mag-lunch.
And they will, a good interviewer doing a background check will interview this person and really like, so what did they do there? What was your relationship?
Why did they leave?
Why did they leave? What were the feedback around them?
What was the worst situation that concerned that person in the previous job?
I've had ambush calls from people who dared put me as a reference. And then I'm really like, oh, what is this about? Oh, I wasn't aware that he was applying. Okay. What do you want to know? And then it's like, sorry, I'm gonna be very honest because you called me at an inopportune
I'm nicer,
time.
but I'm also very blunt.
On the same virtue, Noel says, don't ever think your interviewer hasn't checked or will not check your social media. This is true. Sadly,
social
this
media.
is true.
And when we're not just talking Facebook, we look at all what we think is applicable.
Oh yeah. And then I've had people who have super fun with like, ooh, what's their name? And then they start digging and like, oh God. Okay.
And sometimes it's not, the background checks aren't just for fun. It's because you have to, get a real feel for the person. You have to get a feel for how they are in handling things, how they are when they talk about work. Sometimes you even get a glimpse of how they ended their last work in their posts. So yeah. And if it's made public, then there's nothing wrong with checking it.
Oh my God, Carlos, like Plurk and Friendster. Yes, we will find all your social media. Okay.
The Wayback Machine does exist.
Okay, and then what's this? Kenny's asking, what do you guys feel about putting the character references contact info right away in the resume for those who don't? Naturally, I think the reference is legit when you put it in your resume. When you say it's available upon request, wow, aren't you special? Now I have to go ask who your references are.
I've always understood the available upon request. If it's like you're in the last part of the page and to add it would be a second page. And I'm fine with that. But when it's like,
no, like me,
halfway through the page, available upon request, then why did you put it there?
No, for me, if you're just, don't put it at all. Because like, if you're just going to tell me this bullshit, available upon request, I know they're available upon request. If I need them, I will ask them. Then don't put that bullshit line in your resume. It's so annoying. Because it's really like, so what are you telling me to do? Now I have to ask you for these people and get their numbers? Do I have to write them down on the resume during the interview?
What if it's like references available if you ask nicely?
Then I'm not gonna ask nicely. I'm not a nice interviewer. No, I'm kidding. Okay, all right. Hey, Karen. Okay. But yeah, so
you're preparing your resume. You thought of where you want to work. You've done your homework.
Wait, and then okay, we gotta pause before we get to the interview. I'm so sorry. We have to spend a brief moment talking about creative resumes.
Yes.
Creative resumes. I do not mind. I mean, I work in a creative field, industry. I have to hire designers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I love creative resumes, but they have to make sense. And it is revealing when you are applying in a design job and the design team picks apart your resume. I have had people who have paper screen comments of font choice, like too many fonts. A lot of creative resumes are always in this competition to change the way they present two main areas: their work experience and their skills. Okay,
skill levels, skill
levels. You give me these numbers about Photoshop 10, AI 9,
character sheet inspired.
Yeah, but then a lot of times on the other side of the fence, we're like, how do I know? What is this? What are these bullshit numbers? I mean, it's kind of okay. I'd rather you just list things you're familiar with and maybe just give me that I'm awesome and whatever. But when you go down to numbers, I don't believe.
I test.
I mean, ultimately we'll test.
No, but not during the test. Like, I might be like during the interview, I'll just throw a throwaway line that's obviously wrong. Like, when I use Photoshop and I like, copy something with Control-T, and I'll just see if they'll respond.
I feel like the whole interview is a test, right, of catching these things. So that personally, and I've seen it over and over with my design team, we're very sketchy about these peg numbers. And then visualizations of your work history, please make sense. Because sometimes I see people do charts of their work history. Then I want to ask, so why is it high here and low here? Why are we doing an area map here? Why is it a bar graph here? So don't just do it because you think it looks cool. Charts have meaning and purpose and intent, tell a story. And then I'm like, no. I'm better off with super creative ones that are like character sheet. Yeah, I've seen the character sheet one and the like, I will flash this because it's super important. And then like, please have a link to your portfolio.
Yeah.
No matter how creative your resume is, if I don't see your freaking portfolio, what good are you to me?
I was about to mention portfolios are also an expectation that should automatically be present if you're entering any creative field.
I mean, same thing with development and even writing. I mean, like, they're all creative, but that these things, we need work samples.
So you can't just also rely on saying it's online. What if during the interview, there's no internet connection? What if during the interview, the site is suddenly down? Be sure you have a backup that's locally present on you, whether it's on hard copy or you just have it on a USB file. So at least if, I have it on a website, and then if there's access connection problems or whatever, then, here, a backup. You have to be prepared.
Yeah. And, and there's so many options now. Yes, the most common ones are like Behance. I assume everybody has like a Behance account by now. Sure, DeviantArt. Sure, your own little webpage. Sure, a Wix site for all I care. But please have a portfolio and please organize it based on what you have. Please don't dump everything in a free-form stream that I have to skim over like social media.
And while there's nothing wrong with having not safe for work artwork, please don't make your portfolio.
No, I don't want
just
not safe for work. Oh my God.
Celebrate your art form, and that's fine, but have a space ready for the work-related interviews if you want to show that portfolio.
It's always good, of course, to have work-related stuff, even if it's freelance stuff. But personal stuff. But personally, I don't mind personal projects because then it shows that you're working on your skills and things that you're also exploring. But again, just be thoughtful that the stuff you're showing highlights the skills you want to highlight. Sometimes there are like some really emo illustrations and like, maybe we should do another exam.
Yeah, going beyond just the creative field, for those who want to get into game industry or tech, um, pay attention as well to the fact that how you spent your time is something we look at. Have you been attending game jams? Have you been trying to come up with your own stuff on your own time? If let's say you haven't, have you at least been spending your time, self-educating yourself, watching documentaries, taking courses, or even just tinkering with stuff on your own? Because if you didn't do extracurriculars during your time in school, and then after school you just didn't do stuff, then how are we to really know how passionate you are about what you're doing?
Mid shares for tech, GitHub links definitely. I need, give me your share or your project repositories. That's super awesome. Website, web designers, and I would assume you have a good website portfolio. Better if you coded it yourself. It's weird when it's like you're applying for website developer and then your custom portfolio is on a template site. Then I'm like, why? Worse, it's like Wix. Why?
When it comes to the contents of your portfolio, however, you have to also be aware that if it fell under non-disclosure agreements, or if they were meant to be stuff that you're not supposed to showcase, and they happen to be your really, you feel that they're your great, your perfect, your best work, there is a risk of still showing that. I know some companies are a bit more loose in the sense that, you can show it, but don't leave a copy. So like if it were, oh, this is my portfolio, I can show it, but I can't leave you a copy. And some companies will understand that, others might not. But by doing it that way, you're at least showing you're also aware that there are such agreements and you respect them.
Yeah.
Because when we've had interviews where but I'm not really supposed to show that, sir, but I'll give you a copy. So I'm now thinking, if I hire you, then I have the same problem.
On the same note, so number one, work that you don't have permission to share should not be in your online public portfolio. Number two, delicadeza. When you bring it up, I would never give a copy also. I would show a printout, or like I would bring out a laptop and show like, I have some other samples, but then if you understand their client stuff, and then would it help to show that, then I can.
And just to quickly add, I think you'll only really show those stuff if you can't tell who the client is. But if it's clear who the client is, please don't show it anymore. Because that is a large red flag in the industry. If, I saw that project that intern worked on. And
I've had a case where someone applied, I gave them an exercise. By the time we invited them to interview, my exercise designs were in his portfolio. And I'm like, really? We just did this. It's like, why is it there already? You haven't even had the interview and it's already online. Kind of weird. Okay. Kenny asks, does it add up if you go to conventions and seminars related to the job you're applying? Yes and no. And this is my rule of thumb for like resumes. And this may be a personal preference. I admit it's not. I'm not a recruiter. I'm not professional. But then let me highlight. So again, one, my guiding principle is, because I'm assuming you're making a resume, I want to keep it in 2 pages. And then I want the experience to be relevant. So working with the 2 pages, for me, the most important thing is relevant work experience, then possibly freelance. Work experience, the full-time, work experience that's freelance, maybe some seminar stuff, and then maybe I'll look at your school again. But then when you don't have the work experience, then you only have your school experience, then you're definitely going to have to pad it with seminars, other activities, and extracurriculars. But over time, the more work experience you gather, the less I should see your school stuff. Unless
they fall under really extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, but
for example, you have some work experience, but then you wanted to highlight that you studied in London and this is prestigious school for design and stuff. Then fine,
that's okay.
Maybe it will still be mentioned despite having work experience.
But to also mention you were in the volleyball team at that prestigious school in London, I don't care.
Or Kanda Kawardi.
Oh my God. oh my God, or religious organizations are like, not relevant.
But again, they're not unimportant if you have no work history. Without work history, the more we know what type of a person you are and how you spend your time, the better. And that's when all extracurriculars and stuff make sense. Maybe not all of them are relevant, but if you have nothing else to fill the page with, then at least consider the ones that, highlight what you're good at. I mean, if all you're gonna put is you were part of the Malakas Kumain Club, I don't think we'll care, and I don't think we'll pay attention to that. But if, let's say, your extracurriculars show that you were touring other schools because you were invited to handle this and that.
You organized an event. You were part of the blah 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 committee. I mean, like, it just gotta show you did more than just be there, right? Pico asked, how about skills you self-learned but never had any professional experience? That's not a bad thing.
It's not.
I would just list them as skills and separate them from certifications.
Yeah.
So certifications are different, and then those you can show paperwork for, and they have to have a category on their own. But then just skills, whether self-taught or not, I can lump them all together and don't feel obligated to put a number rating on each.
Yeah. I actually even ask about that sometimes. So like I'm looking at the resume and I might see someone state that they know this and that, but they also practiced using Flash, for example. And this person isn't applying as an artist. So I'd be like, oh, I noticed you learned Flash. What's this about? And, I encourage you to talk about it because I want to understand what would drive someone to learn something unrelated. And that's when you might suddenly discover, in my case, that person was like, oh, because I wanted to do animation. So I dove into this. And for me, that's a huge plus because the person's not placing himself in a box.
Andre is asking, what are red flags company-wise? And this will differ from company to company. So I think we've mentioned a few things, but they're not red flags in themselves and like we abort. But then these are things that a good interviewer would ask more questions about and dig into more. So I mean, personally, and it really depends on the company and the number of applications that are processed. Like when you have the pick of the litter, like in a call center, for example, BPO recruiters winnow a lot out of through paper screening alone and can use very broad brushstrokes to eliminate people. But smaller companies, when you have a smaller pool, will really evaluate each one and think about it and like, at the very least, get that person to an exam or to an interview. Okay. Sorry. Wow.
Sorry.
We got to get past resumes.
My nose is so angry.
Are we done with all your resume questions?
Yeah. Noel does add, just don't lie because your interviewer will know. Trust, especially for the experienced managers.
Yeah, I think the red flag is when we know you're lying.
Yeah. There is, okay. A red flag is when you know you're lying, and that includes false humility.
Ooh.
That includes false confidence. If during the interview, something simple like you're giving feedback on something, let's say they had their presentation and you're giving feedback na, okay, this could have been more interesting and blah blah blah, and your response is, actually, yeah, I know it. That could have been better. Hindi ko nga nagawa, blah 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 blah. No, because that already shows for the rest of the time I'll be working with you. Each time I give you feedback, you're going to throw that at my face. And I want results. I don't want excuses. I could have done it, but I didn't. So why didn't you do it? Other red flags for me.
I feel like more red flags come up in the interview than on the resume.
Yeah.
Resume, it's just really glaring gaps of work history and typos and credentials that don't make sense.
How do you feel about if there was an incident and they end up talking about it?
Define incident.
So let's say, so why'd you lose your previous job? Oh, kasi I was always tardy. Would you prefer they didn't state it and just state that there was problems with the company, or are you happy they were upfront na yun yung nangyari?
I rather they be upfront, but then talk about it. Like but I learned from that experience, and this is what I'm going to do instead. And I mean, like, you can't just drop it and say they let me go because of tardiness.
Or worse, no, kasi they were assholes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're gonna dig into the interview. There are a few questions I want to check before we go on. First, Andre, this is a little confusing for me, but okay. Let's say you found a good job. What you consider in regards to benefits and compensations? But you just said it's a good job, so I will assume that it's good because the compensation is adequate for what you need and the skill set that they are asking of you.
And the job is what you want to do.
Yes, but the valuing, how to value that is different per person, and it will change also at what point in life you are. In the beginning, we're always looking for more money. But later on, you're looking for fulfillment of work and improvement of skills and leveling up your career.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that, one, there's no harm in wanting more money. Money is money. And that's why work exists, because you need money. But two, it is a practice for many to job jump because they think that's the fastest way to increase their salary.
Yes.
And to be honest, I worry for people who do that, because they end up getting stuck in a point wherein they're now asking for a certain price point, but they don't have the skills to match. There.
Then I say you're not worth it,
and that ends up getting them rejected because no way will I pay you more for that skill set. But at the same time,
I accidentally triggered meditating on my Fitbit.
I don't see those persons agreeing to a lower price point, or even if they do agree, just being content with it for a longer period of time. So I worry for people who do it that way. So when it comes to what you consider as good benefits and compensation, as much as it might be very different, you will have to come to your own point in deciding when the financial compensation is not as important as other things.
Yeah.
Because there is no simple answer to that. One can say, money never mattered, but that's dumb. Because your time is worth money.
Yeah.
But one can also say naman na, no, I really want more money, But then now you're working 3 jobs and not having any rest. Then what will you do with that money? Just pay your medical bills. So finding that sweet spot is a individual choice.
I mean, very broadly, as a rule of thumb, but again, rules of thumb are like not, there are always exceptions to the rule.
Some have more than 2.
If you are moving jobs in the same industry, then I would assume that your base pay must always match or be increased from your previous position. The only time that you should take a pay cut is if you are changing industries or moving into a completely different skill vertical that you have some skills in but have not worked in professionally. So maybe you were a website designer for the longest time, but then you want to focus strictly on graphic design. Don't expect to get the same pay because you are changing fields and you may not have the professional experience to back it up.
And also keep in mind that some companies did allow your pay to reach that height because they were expecting you to stay. They invested in you with a higher compensation point. And if you just chose to leave to find somewhere else, you might not find others willing to pay at that level because they don't know you. And from their perspective, your experience might not be at that level yet. So don't jump the gun and just leave expecting other companies will pay you higher than the last one.
Yeah. And then for the benefits question, it really depends on you. But these days, I feel like because everybody gives pretty decent benefits, then, and especially in these times, I would at least say don't go to a company that doesn't have an HMO. Because this is the time of disease, guys. So always get the company with an HMO. Even if it's after regularization, go for a company with an HMO.
So going back to our flow earlier.
Wow, we're still in resume.
We talked about creative resumes. Now we've talked about the preparations and stuff.
Oh, sorry. Kenny had a question about what do you guys feel about people taking out a work experience like they didn't include a job they worked for 1 to 2 months? It's okay, but then be prepared. Don't hide. I mean, don't pretend it didn't happen. The interviewer may pick it up. And if there's a full background check, especially with some of the BPOs, they will find every job you've done. I guarantee.
Yeah.
So if there is a bad incident and like you're trying to hide it, and that's the reason you're taking it out, that's not a good reason to take it out. They will find it.
I would have even preferred that they were upfront, not necessarily detailed. Like, so what happened here during this time? Oh, I worked for this other company, but it wasn't a good fit. I guess it's simple to say I didn't want to stay longer. Leave it at that. Now, if let's say you left because you were fired, because you did something, then maybe, because there was an incident, I did something wrong, so I really regret that happened, and I'm trying to move forward then.
I mean, ultimately, we're just saying be honest and like acknowledge these things, show growth.
I did have once someone who applied, and the 1 year gap, the guy honestly said, "Oh, I wanted to try staying in the beach and be a bum."
I've had people like this,
and I was like, "Okay, so how did that turn out?" I got bored. I wanted to work, and I'm like, "Okay, good answer."
Yeah, or yeah. Oh my god, I had this recent one that I wanted to explore my love in this other career, and the gap is like a year or something. So what happened? Did you find your new love and like it didn't work out? Okay, all right. Noel had some good tips for everyone, and this is like a classic moniker where
because Noel gives talks on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, like, so check your market rate, and an easy way to do that is to look at JobStreet and look at your job position or the positions in your field and see how much they're paying for it. And then at the same time, he's like, peg it about, I mean, ideally you peg around 20% from your last pay, but it depends on how long you've worked there. 1.5 to 2 years is good. Yes, if you've only been there for a year, I don't know. I don't think you can assume the full 20%.
On a related thread, which Noel mentioned much earlier, try to get a better assessment of your actual skills. He mentioned earlier someone who claimed to be an expert, and then when you check, far from it.
It's like people who say they're guys, if it's a 10-point scale and you say you're a 10 out of 10 for like an application or blah blah blah, then are you God? Are you never gonna make a mistake? Are you gonna teach me how to use this app? It's like probably not. But so see, then it's like then this heeing and hawing over are you a 9 or an 8? Then it's just it's a weird conversation, guys. Stop putting numbers on these skills. Okay, that's just me. Yes, Karen agrees. The company expected to stick with them, so they invested in you and all these things. All right, and of course, Pico again. Pico is back and is petitioning once more for Noel to guest. All right. So,
okay lang, we hit 10 naman.
From the paper screen, you may have had a phone interview. That's fine. And I think we'll tackle interviews all together. But then, and I know we're a company like this. We do assessments before the interviews a lot of the times. Do you guys sometimes do that?
Yeah. Well, the HR person does assessments before it reaches interviews. Sometimes it doesn't reach interviews.
But then these are like general like psych exams, IQ exam types, or are there also technical skills?
I'm not sure. I would rather not know.
Okay.
Only because I don't want to be tainted by the results when I meet the person.
Depending on the company, there may be a battery of tests that you are subject to, whether they're from the HR side of the fence or they're from the process owner that is trying to hire you. So these are more skill related.
Yes.
And sorry, you are subject to the hiring process of the company you are getting into. I have had, especially creatives, and I understand, I get it. I know there are probably some bad actors out there who use exercises as a way to get free work. And that's very unethical. But to accuse every company of this really doesn't set things on the right foot. And then, I mean, like in most companies, it's like, there's an honest desire to get to know you better and understand your skill set better. And thus they will ask you to do things. If you are uncomfortable about this, then assume that you are going to get ejected from the hiring process, or you are not giving the interview or the recruitment team or the hiring team the same amount of information they will have to evaluate your case versus other applicants who did the exercise.
You're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. I mean, like in my case, when we do request for exercises up front, I always add disclaimers that number one, I typically ask them to redo things that we've already done. So it's the same brief, this is existing work. And then I specifically state that it is not, we're not going to reuse this because we've already done it. So it's like, it's done. But I get it. And it's okay to just politely say that you're not comfortable and, then kind of go from there. Don't insult the company and say like, you're just trying to get free work. And then like, okay, then thanks. Bye. I've had people like this. And I mean, I get it. And I just assume they're speaking from trauma, but it's annoying, guys. Nobody, don't insult the hiring team.
Yeah. And the reality is in the creative field, while there are bad actors, um, it would be far easier to just find more artists than it would be to steal your idea because it's so brilliant and make it our own.
Yeah.
It would be far easier for the company to conceptualize its own ideas and have people work on it. Because as brilliant as your idea might be, the fact that it has not been something the group was thinking of, there's so much more effort to make it something. Stealing is not as practical as it might seem.
Mm-hmm.
It happens even more, not in a corporate setting, but among individuals. You'll have some applicant showing off a portfolio and then, oh, I know the artist who made this portfolio. Or, oh, so you traced it from, Alan Moore's comic where he featured this. And then they're like, yeah, favorite ko yun. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, again, when you're applying, you are subject to whatever application steps the company is going through. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, sorry, just do it. And then if you feel like, I mean, I get it maybe at more managerial or supervisorial levels where you think that the skill tests like this are beneath you or you should not be subject to, then maybe you should double check the job description that you are applying for. Because maybe you're applying for something that's a bit below your level or below your expectation,
Mm-hmm.
where the technical skills are still more important.
Yes.
So things to think about.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then
hey, Reniel.
we're gonna get to the whole interview thing in a bit. But yeah, I guess we can start. Noel starts with the golden rule of interviews, which is don't be late. Or at the very least, don't be late without advising. And please don't advise us it's traffic.
Also, don't be so early that you show up and then you're asleep in the waiting area.
Oh my God. I've seen that.
It's cute, but it's still not a good message.
Yeah. And like, was this, especially when you live far from work, from the job you're applying for, and then you're late, and you already told the phone interviewer or the email person that, hey, I can get to work on time, don't worry. And then your interview, you're late.
Mm-hmm.
It does not bode well for you, my son.
Now, it is possible that you really are honestly late because of forces beyond your control. Let's say you really still left early, but some accident happened and it, slowed things to a standstill. And by the time you arrive, you're an hour late.
Mm-hmm.
Then, fess up. Don't try to be completely, what's the word? Because there's a point wherein all the apologies gets annoying.
Yeah.
Know when to, say you're sorry.
I don't need your apologies. I need you to be better.
Yeah. And just ask, so can we still do this? Or is it too late? Have I broken my chance? But if you're like, I'm so sorry, sorry talaga sir, sorry talaga. Then now I'm starting to think the moment you do something wrong at work and I like, please revise this. Ay nako sir, I'm so sorry. It's a reflection.
Hello, Reniel. Welcome to the stream. All right. Yeah, so definitely be on time. And then in this time of quarantine, a lot of the interviews are now video interviews from the convenience of home. In both cases, I am so sorry. I must stress, dress appropriately. Mm-hmm. You can always overdress, but don't under.
Yeah. But to the very least, show that you are respecting the fact that, time is being spent to get to know you. And if that time will be spent looking at you from the dark because this light is behind you, then it almost feels like you're not even bothering to make it easier for us to see you. Mm-hmm. So consider those factors.
And dressing appropriately also means that you took some time to look into the company culture. And if they are a suit and tie kind of place, then I assume you're going to be a suit and tie. But then if they're generally casual, still wear a collared t-shirt at least. Like, I mean, be at that professional level, but then in line with the perceived culture of the company.
And it's not a matter of collar or coat or even pants.
Just looking good.
It's just, don't look like you literally just stepped out of bed. Or worse, you're chewing as you turn on the camera and you're, sorry, lunch ko lang. Make the effort.
And that's the new pain of these online interviews. We have had applicants who clearly just woke up. Mm-hmm. And it's bad.
And while it's a fact that most people most likely just woke up before the interview.
But don't
if
look
there was,
like you just
yes,
woke up.
if there was no effort to at least try to freshen up, then that says a lot.
Because does it look unprofessional if the hiring manager in a video call wears a loose shirt? Does it reflect the company's image? Again, if that's their culture, then that's their culture.
It depends on the company, it depends on their culture, and it depends on their comfort level. Because some companies might have a very different professional level, but since they work with some people so long now, they're much more casual, they're much more... Earlier, I was in an interview, no, not an interview. I was in a meeting with some old clients whom we've worked with for years back. And midway through the meeting, we started talking about their kids and the latest movies they're watching. And then it shifted to what we used to play with as kids with insects and stuff. And the other people in the meeting were kind of like, what's going on? But that's because we've gotten that comfortable. And I guess what I'm just saying is, if you've been working for so long, then that does happen. If you're applying for a job, how can that happen? How is it you're that comfortable already?
You're not friends yet.
Then that follows, dress up for it.
Noel and Mitch have great tips I was going to cover for video interviews. And number one, in this day, find a way to have good internet for the interview. You know the interview is going to happen. You have a schedule. Make sure you have a solution for it. If it means going out of your home and finding a place with better internet than your house, then yes, please do so. There are many options to rent working pods and meeting spaces at things like Regis and V Office and whatnot when they're available. And then number two being, make sure it's a quiet area. So if your solution for finding strong internet is a coffee shop, I don't know. It depends on the coffee shop. But if I'm going to hear some weird bossa nova in the background.
Ay, acceptable pa yun.
No, it's with vocals, it's so annoying, so loud. I mean, if it makes it harder to communicate, please don't. Because music in the background comes in at the same volume audio level as your voice.
Yes.
So it will make it harder to understand you.
Given the time of COVID, however, I will add that maybe it's just really beyond your means to go to a quiet place. Maybe you have no choice but to use your terrible internet because, there aren't any options within the vicinity.
Noel, not bathroom, aquarium. Yes, the echo is not... the bathroom acoustics are good for singing, not for interviews.
So what I was saying was, be at least aware that then comes into how the interviewers will be looking at you. Now they're considering, okay, so if we get this person, they'll most likely have this internet problem all the time and this and that. And that might be unfair for them as well.
Yeah.
That might be the reason they might not choose to get you. So be aware of these things because, yes, it might help to get good internet. But then for the rest of the work experience, if it's always going to be your crappy internet, then you've been, selling again a false image of what you plan to do for this job.
Yeah, I mean, if you know the job's going to be work from home for the foreseeable future, then you're going to have to invest.
Yes,
you're going to have to invest in better internet. You can rent a place in the short term for the interview, but once you got the job, you need a solution.
Yeah, you'll need to have that solution. If that solution means going more often to that place, then so be it. But you have to keep that in mind. Don't be irresponsible to the point of, basta sa interview, maganda internet ko, and then in the actual job, bahala na.
Kenny asks, is it a red flag if interviewers get too casual when it comes to phone and online interviews, like professionalism out the door? I mean, it depends on the culture of the company. Like we said, maybe they're trying to reflect that culture. Admittedly, some interviewers use this as a tactic. They are trying to get you to let down your guard and be more relaxed in talking about yourself. But yes, it can be a red flag, especially if it makes you feel uncomfortable. Then if that does not align with your value set, then no need to pursue.
Because as we mentioned in the previous episode, the interview is also for you to decide if you feel the company is a fit. No matter how much you really need the money, if you find yourself getting that vibe that, so that's how they approach things, or so that's how the boss talks to people, or
like, they're now messaging me on Facebook after trying to be friends. That's weird. Things like that.
Or they're messaging me on Facebook at off putting times
inappropriately,
expecting me to answer.
Yeah.
Then, you know, you have every right to decide, okay, I don't want to work in a company that's like this. See?
Noel says you can get Crisp. Yes, there's a noise canceling app services out there so that you can augment your video calls. Mitch, there are noise canceling microphones. There are adapters, and yeah, she has that little Asus widget that's pretty interesting. But at the same time, with this, don't over rely on noise cancellation because noise cancellation reduces your volume also. So that's like it's a balancing act. It reduces ambient noise, but sometimes it also reduces your output. Please test beforehand with friends or something.
And this one's a bit more nitpicky. Be consciously aware where the microphone is.
Oh, Toby's gonna say if the fan's pointing at the mic.
There's the fan and there's laptop mic, but then the person will face there while talking, and you're like, I can't hear you. And then sorry. And then as they're explaining, they'll face aware. I mean, be aware. If you're not wearing a headset, then be aware of how the microphone is working. Be aware of stuff as simple as when the chair scrapes against the ground, or worse, if you're a heavy typer, when you're because sometimes some people are typing during the interview, and it's painful to hear that the entire time.
Oh, but I really don't recommend not taking. I mean, I don't recommend taking an interview not on a headset. I mean, like at the very least, because a lot of times for a lot of video call services, when you, when you have your call on speaker, and then sometimes it creates a weird Doppler echo with the mic. So then the interviewer can hear himself on your computer, and it makes it more difficult to communicate. Kenny's like, they added him on Facebook right after getting hired. I don't necessarily think this is a red flag if you were hired, like you signed papers already.
And I don't think it's a red flag unless there was never any mention of it. I mean, if it was out of the blue they added you, maybe they're just trying to be friendly.
Yeah, maybe it's like part of their quote-unquote onboarding.
But then if it's suddenly added you and the next thing you know is super friendly to the point that it's uncomfortable, then that's definitely a red flag.
Yeah. I mean, like in the end, you're not obliged to add them back, of course. But I don't think adding you on Facebook, if you were hired, is a red flag in itself.
Yeah.
If you were just screened and there's no feedback on your process and then they add you, that's weird.
Yeah. And it's also it could be also a generational thing. For some, adding is their way of saying we want to get to know you more, so you're free to contact us. Whereas for others, why would I add that person? They're not my friend. So it could be that. So don't automatically assume it's a red flag.
Cool. Interesting tech tip. So of course, Noel has the classic tip of practice your smile and your mannerisms. Be aware of how much you move your hands when you talk.
Know your good angles.
Yeah. And then, but Mitch is like, oh, for Google Meet or Skype, you can turn on closed captions. This is true. Google Meet has automatic closed captioning that is not necessarily visible to the other party, which might help you double check what people are saying.
It helps with people with accents. It helps when people mumble sometimes. But just also be conscious that your reactions are heard. So, you know, the person might be talking about something serious. The captions might come out something weird. And if you start laughing, okay, here's a question. How do you feel about people who mute?
During an interview?
Yeah, and then turn it on to talk.
I don't mind if I see that they're not talking. Because I know it's a way to minimize background noise and feedback. They want to focus on what's being said. But if you're on mute, and then I can see you're talking to someone else, that's weird.
That's bad form.
That's bad. You're not focused on the interview.
I do feel, though, that it's a good habit to gain to automatically mute if you're not talking.
Yeah, I think it's a good practice.
Because it's sort of showing you want to listen and you don't want to distract.
And you already have like some degree of like video conferencing etiquette.
For me, that even shows it's an active listening thing. Because if you can see the person's listening, but they're muting and then unmuting when they talk, then you know they're paying attention.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Noel's like, he doesn't add staff on Facebook and IG, only on LinkedIn. I work in social media, so we're already talking on Facebook all the time. So it eventually happens.
Me, I'm for people who I work with, I ask if they're comfortable with giving their number, and I ask if they're comfortable for me to add them on Facebook. Because if I can't reach them in the office channels, then I will still have to reach you somehow. Because I would rather make a call that might be not comfortable to get because, let's say, work is delayed and I'm getting angry now, than to simply report that you have disappeared. And it becomes an HR
It's too late for Reniel. He has to sleep, but he will follow up on the recording. Good night, Reniel. I hope you found good stuff. Okay. Karen said, remember when your employer adds you on social media, they will certainly see your posts, your personal ones. So I guess you don't accept the request. That is a good point. I mean, like, yeah, your social media is your own.
Yeah, you're free to tell
You're
them
not obliged.
that you don't like adding social media people to social media. You can state it's because you prefer to just keep close people there. That's up to you. That's your personal thing.
But your LinkedIn is fair game.
But if your social media is public, then even if you choose not to add them, that still means they
then
can
if
see
all
it.
your posts are public, then sorry.
So try to be consistent with your reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with stating, I'd rather not add you yet.
Well, I was like, if I can't reach you on the office channels, then you shouldn't be with us. True. All right.
Well, because one can be, if I can't reach you in the office channels, then I'll report to HR that I can't reach you because I need the work done. And I don't want to reach that point yet. So rather than waste time just fuming, I'd rather call you and say, hey, what's happening? Because I know this is the Philippines and internet can be
Yeah,
tracked.
that's true. Mitch is like, oh, and maybe you can also add them in restricted if you really want to. I mean, me, it's like, if you're not comfortable, don't force it. You're not obliged to. Your social media is your own. I don't feel comfortable with companies that require you to add them on Facebook. But then I do accept that companies will have groups on Facebook that you may need to join.
Yes.
So then some connection has to happen. So I mean, groups are fine. Forced friendship is weird.
I guess the best way to, at least for me, is in as much as you have your personal email, you have your office email, social media accounts doesn't have that division. So telling them that you'd rather keep your social media account just personal life is fine. But if they have certain communications that do happen in that channel, then you'll have to see what accommodations you can use to make it work for you as well. And whether that's restricted lists or whether that's a different account, that's your problem and not ours.
Okay, then the interview itself, in general, I mean, like, there's no good way to answer things, but my tip will always be to answer questions completely but succinctly. Okay, please be aware of how much you are talking versus how much the interviewer is talking. And if 10 minutes go by and the interviewer has not been able to say anything because you are relating this one long story of your work history, might not be great.
Also, pay attention if you've told that story already.
Okay, I haven't had an interview that bad.
And then be aware of your volume.
Oh, yes.
Especially if the interview is face-to-face. The last thing anyone wants is to have to tell you, I'm sorry, can you tone that down? So be aware of the volume level you're speaking. If the interview is happening somewhere noisy, then maybe you should bring that up. I'm sorry, it's a bit loud here. Is there somewhere else we can do the interview?
If it's in person.
Because I'm worried I might be yelling at you. You can state that, and sometimes that's even a good show that, okay, the person, is aware of these things.
And Noel, like, hits it on the head, really, like, answer the question. It says, if you have to give me this long introduction, oh my God, please start with your headline first. Get to the thesis, and then maybe you can add more information. But if you don't answer the question, it's like, oh my God.
So you have a year here that you didn't work. So what happened? Kasi ganun yun, yung father ko nag-work dati sa Middle East. Tapos yung mom ko mahilig mag-shopping. Now, si kuya, I'm like, nasaan na tayo?
I've had a lot of these.
And it happens. And sometimes it's because of nerves.
Yeah, then you end up like staying weird
and think about and realize that doesn't mean you're doesn't mean you're out. If the interviewer brings it up that, okay, wait, stop, you're going enough, then react, resolve, fix, and make it better. And that's even better because they chose that you adjust. But if you don't,
I've had cases where like I ask a question, I get a very long answer, and then at the end I'm like, let me rephrase my question because I don't think you answered it. Or like, or worse is when I say so, and then I repeat the question because you just spent all this time not answering.
There's no harm in practicing a spiel or having something to say in mind.
Yeah.
But know that people can tell if it's a practiced, memorized spiel.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to be able to say it naturally.
To be fair, I had a candidate once who like had really like well thought answers to so many questions. But at the same time, they were well researched answers to the questions that she had really taken the time to practice. We ultimately hired her because of the whole interview. But it was like that particular aspect was at first like a little weird, but at the end like no, but it's like she's not like saying stupid things. She's saying the right things at the right time. It's just wow, she's really prepared.
She wanted to be able to answer it properly.
Yes. Yeah. And then I was just a little hesitant, like I just want to make sure it's the real her. But super paid off.
Now a very common guideline, and Karen mentioned it, is to be confident. Yes, it's very, very important to be confident. I realize some people will say, but I'm a shy person. How will I be confident?
I'm humble.
Or I'm not yet experienced, so baka mayabang if I'm confident. That's not what confidence is. Confidence is, this is me, and this is what I want to say. And even if that what you want to say is, actually, I haven't tried doing that yet. That's fine.
Yes.
But the fact that you're saying it confidently, you're saying it straightforward, compared with, ano kasi mahirap lang kami, and no, that's not what we want to see in an interview, because maybe that works for TV, but that doesn't work for an interview.
Noel has a big piece on, and then if you are asked if you have any questions, come prepared. Ask insightful questions about the company culture, most especially, or just how the business is going. Ask smart questions, something the interviewer will know you did your research. Yes, I feel weird when the applicant has no questions. I mean, like, I know I'm pretty thorough. I'm the type of interviewer who, first half, we talk about you, then I have a spiel where I talk about the company and why we're looking for people. And then I wait for you to give me questions. And then a lot of times, like, you explained everything. Then like, here, so that's it? And like, then I feel like you're not really interested. You didn't do research and stuff.
On my case, I would, how do I state this?
Humility is not equal to being pabebe.
Because compensation,
thanks, Pico,
is always a private matter. Assume that if you have any questions related to that, you will direct them directly to the HR person you're talking to. An interview is not a place, especially with a panel, it's not a place to ask compensation-related questions, because the others in the interview might not be the people who should hear about it. Like, there might be a panel interview with the different managers talking to you, and even if they're managerial level, your compensation rates are between you and HR. The managers should not be part of that discussion.
Well, may not be part of that discussion.
I mean, because there was one interview I was in wherein the interviewee threw out the number in front of all of us. Na parang, so when I was applying and I asked for blah, 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 is there a problem with that so far? And we were all looking at each other na parang, we're not supposed to be here for this. We'll leave you with HR, and we left. But of course, we heard not only that number, and that gives an impression. And that's the thing about compensation. Money is always going to be a tricky personal topic. Whether it's the pay grades, or whether it's based on your experience and the like. The moment you hear someone else's compensation rates can affect how you view them in a professional level. So it's
That's
best kept as a private matter between you and HR.
Or if the interviewer initiates.
Yes.
Normally, if the interviewer can initiate, then you're already at the level where they can talk about it.
Yes, actually, they will only initiate if you're in that level. If you feel that you're not sure, then you can. I guess what I'm saying is the HR person would be the best one to answer those type of questions. Because sometimes the manager, in as much as they might respond, it's still not their call. They don't really decide if they'll pay you that much. They'll just decide if you're fit for the job.
I don't have an HR team, so I am the person who asks the question.
Yeah.
And then the one who's really like, I always, when I went, I have a few people who ask about compensation, which again, it still feels weird when the applicant initiates the compensation question. Then I will turn around and say, what was your last drawn pay? And like, how long were you there? And I mean, like, let's talk about that. So it really depends. Okay. And okay, people are like, a few tips. Mitch is like, things you can ask are like, what does the team do for the fun? Or if you're talking, if our talking to you is what frustrates you. I feel like you're missing some nouns there, but I think I get the general gist. So asking about what things do for fun, that's nice.
What does the team do for
culture
fun?
question. And then I guess you're trying to ask the interviewer what that frustrates them. Quaint when you're trying to turn the tables. And then I like deflect and like if I have the technical team with me, then like, so what would you say? Because like it's not my role. I'm in charge. So in this position. Asking questions at almost the end of the interview is the interviewer's chance to learn more about insights in their management and team culture. Yes, Pico. And it shows interest.
That is actually one of the questions which I recommend you ask, which is, so what's the company culture? Because it's one thing to have an impression of the company based on research. But then that specific branch or that specific company sometimes has a different culture. For example, maybe in the major corporation, they're all about family and ganyan. But then the company, the branch you're applying with is mostly people who are
in the back end office and it's super like business.
And they're like, oh, we don't do outings here. And, you deserve to know that. It's not intrusive to ask about the company culture. And that includes, what do the people do here for fun? Are there events that happen on weekends? Are there family events? Are there like times where we bring our kids over? Stuff like that is things you have the right to ask because they're not harmful questions. And they also tell you, if you're going to invest the next few years of your life working here, then at least you know what you're into.
Pico was asking, how about interviews for internal transfers? I would treat them as professionally as interviews outside. So it could be the same. Still ask questions.
I'd even say it's better to focus on that professionally, because if it suddenly doesn't push through, you'll feel personally hurt.
Yeah.
But if it's professional, then okay, maybe it's not yet time.
And then Pico, can you say what are no-nos when asking the interviewer? I mean, so compensation is definitely one. Me, I hate the pakyut, like, do you have any questions? So am I hired? Did I pass? No, you're not cute. Don't ask that. It's annoying.
I think general statement is no politics, no religion, no personal questions.
Read the room and don't be too friendly. Yeah, so, like you can talk. You can joke about things that were brought up in the interview that that the interviewer responded to, but don't assume too much. Angelo says, good question is also to ask for the pipeline. Magkaka-idea ka na agad kung ayos pa sila.
Oh my God, Angelo, you're here.
That's an interesting question.
Yes, that's true.
The interviewer may not have this information, but it's a good thing to ask. Okay. I can see how there's value there.
How do you feel about when they're like, so marami ba nag-a-apply? No, because some do ask that. There are a lot of applicants.
I haven't gotten that question. It's in Singlish, I would say it's abuden, which is like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't help you whether or not there's a lot of applicants.
Yes, that's what I replied to one person who asked me that.
It's like, what does it matter?
So marami ba nag-apply? And I was like, actually, whether or not marami, it's irrelevant to this.
It's a no point question for me.
You could also ask, what are the career paths like? So you know at least parang, is this a job that has growth in mind? Is this a job that doesn't look like it will have growth?
Or it's a different kind of growth. And it makes, because some people equate growth with title changes.
Yes.
But then sometimes it's not title changes. It's skills and commensurate compensation.
Because some companies don't. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there.
I'm a smaller company that does not have a lot of levels.
Yeah, and just because there aren't any title changes does not mean there are no responsibility shifts.
Or it doesn't mean you're not growing.
Yes. So you have to be aware of that, because if you're the type of person who, I want, kasi in 2 years I'm a manager na, then this might not be the company for you.
Kenny's like, how about asking what we can expect for results? That's not a bad question. It's very basic. Sorry. I mean, I feel like, and this just reflects the company, they should tell you what the next steps are like, but it is not bad to be the one to initiate. So what are the next steps in this process? You know, whether it's results, is there another interview, things like that. Skills that you can learn without changing the titles are much better, but also tricky when changing careers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. And especially because, and Pico, I know you're betting on a tech track. So there's some very technical, I mean, there's very specific requirements.
And that's why, going back to resume writing, you have to describe
skills versus certifications
and the responsibilities you took in that job. It's one thing to say you were the technical head, but it's also another thing to have there manage the team of blank, handle this, had to learn this to handle this, and that at least gives them a better idea of what else you touched on that the title itself might not capture.
Noel jokes, ask for the turnover for the position. No one's going to answer you, but yes, that's a joke. And then Mitch is like, what's a good answer to the question? Where do you see yourself in blah, blah, blah years? 5 years, 3 years, whatever. What are your thoughts on that, Toby? I have an answer, but I want to hear yours.
I like hearing that answer because it already gives me a glimpse if they really want the job they're applying for.
But like, what type of answers then indicate that they want the job they're applying
for? I've heard some which are like super high goals. Like, you know, in 10 years, I want to have my own company. I want to be producing my own stuff and this and that.
Okay.
Which, you know, maybe sometimes it's scripted, but if you hear when they're talking about it, you can tell that they already have, I want this and I want this. And it'd be nice if I could have a company here. Then you know it's something they really want to do. But then if you have someone go, I don't really think that far, then I'm suddenly now worried. Okay, what if Maborsha by next year doing this job? So that's what I kind of find in that answer. And then I actually like it when they do answer something very different. Because when I then ask more about that, I see if it still connects or not. Like there's one who was stating they wanted to make their own comics and they wanted to have their own IP. And I was like, okay, but they're applying for this. So bigla lang, why that? So when I talked to him more, the response was, so that I now am earning and I can make games on the side now when I want.
I will temper this with this. I mean, in general, the point of the question is to determine your forward outlook and determine if you have some sort of a plan for yourself professionally. Depending on the time scale of the question, be thoughtful in this. If the X number is small, let's say 2 to 3 years, and you're talking about your own business, these lofty goals overseas, I'm going to be working in another country, red flag. Because then you don't see yourself with the company that long. Then you're mapping out something elsewhere this soon. That's weird. When it's over 5 years and you're at a midpoint in your career, you're maybe in your, I would say your 30s. Then I understand if your goals are already like going elsewhere, that's fine. If it's like where you see yourself in 5+ years. When it's 10 to 15, then yes, you can shoot for the moon, but still keep them as professional / career related to show growth in your chosen career path. And don't just say, I'm going to be traveling the world because I've always wanted to go to Europe. Huh? Okay. Noel, anything that could be growth from within that company or position, talking about learning more skills that you're telling me you want to plan to grow. Yes, super pareho tayo, Noel. At the same time, especially the 2 to 3 year mark, don't be too cute in the sense of where do you see you in 2 to 3 years, working with you guys. Like, okay, I need more than that. I've heard that. Like, working with you, or
I had that.
a team leader already.
I had that once, and I threw back there, but by then I resigned it. So bigla siyang, huh? And I'm like, well, see.
What are your strengths and weaknesses? It always feels weird talking about weaknesses.
It always will, and in many ways, it's always a test. And I will state that there is no definite right answer to answer that question.
It depends on the interviewer.
Because every interviewer asks that with a reason in mind, that they're looking to see how you'll react. Some want honesty, others want to hear you, parang sige, tingnan natin paano niya iikot to, paano niya ibobola. But it's rarely seen as an opportunity to hear from the interviewee their actual weakness. That is rarely the actual case of that question being asked.
I mean, again, depending on read the room, read the interviewer. It's a two-way process. But me personally, I feel like if you want an approach that might work more often than not, I mean, strengths, talked about the things that you are definitely good at. That's easy. Weaknesses, talk about the things that frustrate you that you want to be better at. So, I mean, you can talk about like skill areas where, especially like if you're talking about design, I really want to get better at animation, but I know I'm not.
Or I really want to dive into this because I've only focused on this so far.
Yeah. So then it's a weakness that you're working towards.
But then if your weakness is, ano kasi I always wake up late.
Oh, is that so? Or I'm always late and you were late for the interview, and like, yeah, thanks. Okay, so yeah, so Noel, same thing. It's like answers that always about growing out of or overcoming it. But I don't want it, for me personally, I don't like when it's so Miss Universe. Or like, okay, the weakness answers I hate. I'm a perfectionist. I work too hard.
So I had one that said that. And my answer was, so is that why your resume has a typo?
Ba-bam! If you're applying for copywriter, no typos in your resume.
No, if you're going to state you're a perfectionist,
no
typos on your...
And then Amos, I sometimes wonder why should we hire you comes up by the end of some interview, as if I haven't pitched myself enough for the whole time.
It's a confidence.
It's a fair question.
It's a confidence test. Sometimes it's a test to see how you'll handle a stressful question on the spot. It's rarely really to sell.
No, but I think it's still a good opportunity because they're not asking you for skills and stuff.
Yes.
We've already talked about that. But remember that when you are applying for a position, everybody has the skills.
Yes.
If you got to an interview, you are already probably in a pool of people with similar skill sets. What they're really asking you is what makes you different. What's your differentiator? What's your unique selling proposition if you are a product? So yes, you must still sell yourself. And yes, maybe you have not sold yourself yet, or you haven't stressed why you are a different candidate.
Yes.
What will make you memorable? What will make the interviewer remember you over the others?
I'm a perfectionist.
I'm a perfectionist. I work too hard. I try too hard. Here's the world's smallest violin playing the world's saddest song. Okay. Karen's like, interviewer can see through BS, strengths and weaknesses. Yes, because interviewers, especially, I mean, anyone who does interviews on a regular basis, oh my God, they've heard it all. And they know.
So moving beyond the interview.
Ba-bam!
No callback yet. Do you follow up?
How long has it been? It's a twofold street. One, did they tell you how long it will take them to make a decision? Then sorry, you are bound by that period of waiting for before you can follow up.
So if they said they'll get back within the week,
then you can follow up at the start of the next week.
Yeah. If you follow up within the week, that's bad form.
If they said 2 weeks, sorry, wait 2 weeks and then roll with it.
Now, let's say you have to follow up because there's another application. Then fine. But realize you are also giving that impression. It's not a bad thing, but in any job interview or in any application, of course, you have to bear in mind that what you do will affect how they will decide.
Yeah, and I've had a few like that where it's like, I mean, you can phrase it well in the sense that I really want to consider you guys, but
there's another offer.
There's another offer, and they're asking me to make a decision by so and so date,
and I want to at least make sure you're aware because I still am considering this one also.
Yeah, but again, you have to phrase it well because I've had cases where it sounds like that, but it's not quite like that. Where it's like, I have another offer kasi. And parang, are you also going to make an offer? It's okay.
Take it.
Take it.
On a related note, what's this? Oh, I lost it. I was going to say it. So there's the follow-up and they haven't called back. And then there's the, while waiting, you got a job somewhere else. Are you obligated to inform the other side?
Me? I mean, it could be nice. It could be nice. So many people complain about recruiters never getting back to them. But then maybe you should also get back to your recruiters. So, I mean, I would think it's professional to let them know that, hey, I've already taken another position. It's cool because then they still have a good impression of you. And that, it's something that then there's a chance maybe you might work in the future. Remember that with every employer that you speak to, you may not work with them now, but you might work with them later.
And let's face it, the industry circles are getting smaller and smaller. Oh. Whether it's the internet, whether it's because of working in a region, or whether it's because pirating is very rampant in many industries.
Arr.
It is not uncommon to find yourself going, oh, you again. In a different company, or worse, in the company you're already in because that person transferred to yours.
Oh, and then on a personal note, and this is just a personal observation, I do not have data to support this, but what's this? Turnover rates in the recruitment industry. Recruiters move around a lot. And when you know them well, you will see them again. And if you leave a bad impression with the recruiter,
regardless of what job you were
doing, you
doing,
may encounter them again, and they may give you trouble later on. I do not have data to support this, but recruiters get around, and they really stay in this industry, and they're everywhere, guys.
And in this country, there is still that personal level that does factor in. Even if people are being professional, there is still that level of non-professional, ay, wag mong kunin yan. Nakatrabaho ko na dati yan, and blah, 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 blah. So the last thing you want is to give the wrong impression to people, even if you don't think you'll work with them in the future. Be cordial, be professional, end things on a better note, or at least be civil.
Yeah. So, I mean, Karen echoes, and when they're talking to Mitch, delivery of these things is all important. They had a suggestion for tech. Pico's like, it happened to him once, actually. He was already in the final interview on one employer. Then he got an offer on the other. And then nagsara yung company, nag-apply ako sa second, it worked well. I mean, like, it's really case to case. Noel reminds everyone to honor your non-compete clauses, but you don't want to get in trouble. Yes. Although it is very expensive for a company to pursue non-compete, but also a lot of non-competes are not necessarily not allowing you to work in the same industry. But companies tend to ask to be informed when you go to a competitor. And that's not terrible. It's still courtesy. And again, industries are small. You want to leave a good impression with people.
Yes.
Kenny asked, since we're on the topic, should we be honest if the interviewer asked if I applied for other companies and also asked about it? I see no issue. Okay, I'm guilty of asking this question. But I see no issue in answering. You don't have to name the companies, but you can, at the very least, mention that, yeah, I still have a few open applications. Some of them are pretty close.
Yes.
Things like that. And that's the reason why the interviewer is asking. If he's just going to ask where, okay, that's a kind of shallow interview question. But if he's going to ask, how soon things are coming along, it's because he's also trying to make sure his timeline for hiring works with you, which may be a good indicator, because then he's trying to make sure that he has a chance to hire you.
Yes.
Right? The asking if you have active applications is a potential indicator of interest or that you have a shot at it. So be open about that you are in the process, but yeah, no need to mention the companies. Oh, Toby, I've seen the scenario as well. Yung, wag mo hire yan, nakatrabaho ka na yan, bad yan. Yeah, people, there is the informal background check that happens, especially in companies with HR and recruitment. And they can see like, hey, didn't you all work at, e-telecare? Did you encounter this person? People ask within the company to find out. Okay. Okay, glad you appreciate the answer, Kenny. Mitch, a bit off tangent. If you're not looking but someone contacts you, what will be good responses? There's no harm in entertaining. There's no harm in entertaining. I have friends who do this to check their market rate. It is not bad to entertain interviews regardless of your employment position. But then if you really don't want to move, if you're really in a good place, you can also be very honest and just say that I'm not looking at the moment. I always say this because I'm super happy where I am. I have the dream job with my sister.
I tend to get calls for credit cards instead.
That's different. You're also not interested.
Yes.
You're happy where you are now. Okay.
I got a lot of LinkedIn. Offer this position, offer this like that. I'd like please add me so I can tell you about the offer.
Oh, that's recruitment in general. Recruiters are always like eager to expand their LinkedIn networks. I don't always add them. I don't add recruiters who don't introduce themselves on LinkedIn. They just try to add me, like, who you? And then there are some who do reach out, and I know they're just databasing and they're just trying to push their network because
they need that network.
They need network. They need to narrow the number of connections because it makes it easier for them to message people that are not their friends. Okay, Karen, how should you respond when you've accepted a position in company A and company B contacts you? Be honest.
You can mention that
you've already signed.
And
if you've already signed a job offer, you're as good as hired.
Okay. Hypothetical question. You said yes to A. B calls. You tell B that you've already said yes to A. B throws you a larger offer. Now, in theory, I've seen some people, they'll suddenly drop A and go to B. In theory, you can do that because it's too expensive for A to make a fuss about that. But people remember. And
yeah,
the industry is small.
Yeah, when that happens, also assume you are burning your bridge with A.
Yes.
There's also the alternate scenario where some people, you're hired, you sign the job offer sheet with company A. Company B brings you a higher offer. You go back to company A and say, hey,
B is
offering me this.
Will you?
Again, it's messy because then it's all about the money. In general, and as we wrap up this employment episode, there is always a higher paying job. There is always a higher paying job.
Yes.
And you will we always will need more money. We will never have enough money to cover everything because that's the way life is.
Yes.
And it will take time and a point where you get to a comfortable enough level that maybe yes, you can use more money, but you're kind of comfortable, and then you can focus on jobs that are more fulfilling rather than higher paying. And it's hard to recognize that point, I know, but realize it is out there and that you should think about the long term and think about that. Noah's like, I don't add insurance agents on LinkedIn. Yes. LinkedIn emails are weird, except they don't answer. Yes. Saying is verbal consent. It's binding. So asking for more time if you're still deciding talaga. That's fair. I mean, like, as long as you've already agreed to an offer and then you try to argue for another offer, then they'll say like,
it's like bad form.
This is the offer.
Super bad form. And that's the thing. They'll say this is the offer, and now you're forced to accept it. But they still remember you as the person to try to squeeze out more. So that's not going to be a comfortable working situation for the long term, unless you are lucky enough to turn it into a funny story that you laugh about with HR. That depends.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I mean, like work in the law. I mean, yes, you always have to pay the bills, and that's fine. But you just gotta balance that out. And just jumping for money, I mean, we all do it at one point or another, but it's not fulfilling. It doesn't look great. And then please think about, just start taking the long view. And don't just look at, I need a job now to pay my bills. But think about, what does this mean for my career? You have a career. It is a big thing. You are shaping it. Every job shapes it. So short stints, sadly, will never look good on paper, unless there's like really good reasons for it. And short, I'm sorry, but short is anything less than a year. Anything less than a year is like, oh, what happened there? Anything less than 5 months, ooh, didn't get regularized. I mean, like there are automatic assumptions that happen when people look at the numbers. So think about the shape of your career. And then if you took a supervisory role already, you attained it at one point, it's weird when you take a non-supervisory role next in the same field. If you're changing tracks entirely, then it's fine. You got to start lower. But when you move down, it reflects badly on you, in my opinion. Okay, because then it tells me you're not really thinking about your career.
And then for some companies, that even reflects bad on them, because suddenly there's that impression na, oh, manager na yun, and then you got him as gantong level lang. So dinaya mo siya. And even if that's not the case, even if you wanted to be in a lower position, it's a more complicated matter for everyone concerned.
The only borderline moment I see this happening as I don't agree with it, but possible exception is BPOs. Because I see a lot of team leaders become agents again, because that's the only way to get into a new program, and then they work their way up to TL again. It sort of happens at first level supervisors, but then when you're a manager already, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. It's bad for protect your career, protect your value, protect your long-term worth.
So closing,
getting a job is hard, guys. Value the jobs you have, but again, when you do need to look for work, take the whole thing seriously, and don't make it a numbers game. So yes, please don't apply it to every job with the same resume, introduction, cover letter. I mean, try to take some time to tailor it. Things like LinkedIn and JobStreet make the process easier, but even then, like even JobStreet, you can still put in a custom resume. Don't rely on the JobStreet template resume. It's the most boring, unhelpful resume in the world. And all this. In general, it just means please invest time in the process and show the companies that you're hoping to get a job with that you care about getting a job with them. That's like my general thrust.
So mine would be
so much talking. Yeah, I've been talking all day, guys.
Yes, you have been talking a lot. But it's okay. You're helping a lot of people.
I'm very passionate about work.
In my case, it would be a job is no different than having a relationship with another person. It's the choice to be with someone, in this case, a large group, for a indefinite long period of time, wherein you are devoting not just time, but attention, responsibility, and focus on. And in the earlier years, the pain matters a lot, because that is how you find yourself measuring your worth and your value.
That's true.
But as time passes, as you gain more responsibility, as you expand in both wisdom, knowledge, and skill, you will realize that in as much as the pay can always adjust, your time is more valuable than the money. And that's when you might find yourself realizing that you might only want to focus on it to this level because you want to make sure you have time for other personal things, for other desired activities and the like. Because some people do work themselves to death because they think that's the only way their value becomes bigger. It's by the numbers. Try to avoid getting trapped in that position. See the value as, now you are earning enough to live the life you want, but still have the time to spend that life. And don't ever be the person without a job. Even if it's just your own business or your own freelance thing. But to not have a job, hey, if only everyone can be that rich. But even worse if you're not also rich,
this is not to say that your personal self-worth is commensurate to having employment, but we got to be practical in this capitalist society that you need
you need to be able
to
sustain
support yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't be the bum.
Don't be the bum. Don't be the parasite.
Don't be the person who burns bridges, Pico says. And yeah, and I was like, yes, eventually find work you love, be patient, and gain skills. Yeah, I mean, like, ultimately, work is still an opportunity for learning. And if you're not learning and growing, again, this ties to building your career, then that's a problem. And, it's a challenge, And then, yeah, I think I'll always go back to that process. I mean, ultimately, Toby is stressing knowing your value and your worth and the value of your time and such. And then by the same virtue, that's why we always say that, remember the interview, not just the interview, but the whole application process is an opportunity to get to know the company while they're also getting to know you. It is an opportunity for both of you, both sides, to see if you fit together. And if that works, then that works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So happy January hiring time. So I hired someone just this week. So
I had a few interviews, and it's too soon to talk about those. So I'll just talk about the ones from years back.
I'm just so happy that we have an online HR system that also has a recruitment function, and I got to do an electronic job offer, which includes I can see when they viewed it. And then if I had to revise it, it tracks the versions. It's like, oh, that's so fun.
I'm happy that I know a lot of people have still landed new jobs despite the pandemic.
A lot of people have been able to get work. Great for you. It's a harder time than normal.
Yes, and last year was really, really, really harsh. I mean, a lot of people just abruptly, their lives felt like they stopped because suddenly
the world stopped.
Yeah.
So yeah, things are continuing on. It's still, we're not out of the woods. It's still a difficult time. So continue to value the jobs you have. And then, like, if you really, really want to move, just make sure you don't just quit and bahala na si Batman. I mean, like, have a plan. That's me.
Adulting does include being sure you're ready before you resign. Resigning, then only then looking for a job is
a little irresponsible. I get it unless it's like super abusive and like, ooh, you need to get out of Dodge. But then, like, if it's not that bad, then you can probably endure it a bit more
to prepare yourself for that transition.
Yeah.
Because you deserve a better transition. All right.
Transition.
I guess that's it. That's our topic for tonight. Mitch says, such fun. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a lot of fun, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
If you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, fill out the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. We're not ignoring your suggestions. I know we've been doing a lot of custom stuff this week, but Toby mapped out a plan, and then, like, it gives us a bit more structure.
Yeah. I'm sorry to... Well, we're trying to lead up to a point where we could announce days before the episodes so people can...
We now have soft topics planned, but we're not confirmed on them, and we're still confirming them on the day.
So we're definitely hoping to...
We're getting better
things out to the point that this week, topics include blah, 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 blah. And at least you have an idea. Because hopefully by then, we also have guests who know that they're scheduled for certain days.
Yes. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter, Toby No Shade, RG Sunico.
You can also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. What are your tips for job seekers? What are your tips for resumes? And do you have an actual way to give numbers to skills on those darn creative resumes? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride. Have a good night, everyone.